that for me?
Yeah.
We only allow people that are from the 4 towns. This doesn't have town. I understand that. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:06. Kathy, can you take the roll call, please? Present.
Stephen Finnegan.
Present.
Amy Gentile. Barbara Kichka.
Present with other board members in the room.
Sheila Lewis. Here. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Thank you. If you could rise for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the approval of minutes from the last meeting. I don't see the minutes in the packets. Do you have them in the packet?
I saw them on
Okay, let's defer the approval of the minutes and put them on the agenda for next time. I don't have them in front of me. And we don't, do we have any non-public minutes? No. Okay. Moving on to delegates and individuals. Oh, yes, Barbara.
I motion that we limit delegates and individuals to 30 minutes to start, and then any leftover at that will continue at the end of our meeting.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Ken, did you get that? Okay, so moving on, that motion passes. We will limit it to 30 minutes. We'll end delegates and individuals at 7:38. I would remind delegates and individuals you're limited to 3 minutes. When you come up, please state your name and your town. Only individuals from towns within the four towns within the district are allowed to speak during delegates and individuals. First person I have is Stephanie Apitz. If you could come up, please.
Hello. Oh, that's way loud. Sorry. My name's Stephanie Apitz, and I'm from Danville. My goal tonight is to help the board understand what some of the parents behind me are referring to when they speak of their children being read anti-police, anti-first responder, and sexual content materials in our elementary school. We can provide the pages and the book that this came from, and I'm going to read some of the lines. Alex's body was limp, his eyes closed, and his chest still rising and falling, but only slightly. I'll never forgive those 911 people for taking so long to come. I noticed the blood quietly pooling behind his head. The orange shirt instantly turned deep red. No more losing blood. For 51 minutes, I shouted, "Help, help, help," until my voice gave out. Alex's breathing wasn't the same, but it didn't matter at that point. The 911 people had taken forever. I hung up before I could yell at him, because they're no better than those 911 people, worthless. Sexual content. I wish this was one of those times where you could call up your sperm donor and see if they'd be willing to give their offspring a brief talk about self-preservation. I guess when my mom was looking through the sperm donor's profile, she didn't think she needed someone artistic. Tell your friend he's a hateful bigot. I'm a reporter with the Falls Gazette, and I was wondering if I could get a quote from you about your thoughts on the transgender bathroom law. It seems like it makes you really angry. Headline: For trans students in rural area, gender-neutral bathroom law meets resistance. Angry people who thought I hated transgender people, and I don't hate them, I just don't know any, but that's not a crime. At least they included the quote for me that there aren't any transgender people in our school. Hopefully that will make things clearer. It's a message request on one of my social media accounts from someone I don't know. Would you do an interview with us? We want to understand how you could know that no one in your school is transgender. I have a whole screen of message requests from strangers. Shame on you. I'll pray for your soul to give up its bigoted ways. So if you're a they, I blurted out, does that mean you were born a boy, but you're really a girl? T shakes their head. Then I'd be a she. I don't fit into either the boy box or the girl box. I'm just me. I'm not transgender. Did my mom tell June she thinks I am? Was this because I said I wanted to be like Katherine Johnson? That doesn't mean I want to be a girl. I'm not trans and I'm not gay. I'm just a girl, just like T said. I'm just me. Does he really think he can tell who is transgender and who isn't? These are just lines from one of a few books that were read in our elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Serpine, Plastow.
There we go. Jim Serpian, Plastow. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what Stephanie had just spoken about. It was really something very sneaky, manipulative, appeared to be with a political purpose. Spring of this past year, approximately 20 fifth graders across 3 classes at one of the elementaries were selected to participate in this instruction. Parents were not notified, the kids were not told why. There was nothing discussed ahead of time of the content to be discussed, and again, nothing to the reason behind the selection of the students. We parents found out from our children, as did a lot of the parents back here. There's probably still parents that their kids were in this and still are not aware of that. So if you think about the content, Stephanie had spoken the human sexuality. It referenced sperm donor. There's another point she didn't discuss, but also referenced being gay in a human sexuality context. Discusses hatred for police and emergency services, which is a horrible message to be given to any elementary kid, along with the fifth graders with that. So what's the problem here? If we first look at the issue with the human sexuality, with the sperm donor being referenced multiple times, we as parents were not given a 2 weeks heads up and a 2 weeks notice per the Timberland rights and responsibilities. So that was the problem. For the human sexuality course that the nurses taught, we got the letter ahead of time so we could review the material per the rights and responsibilities and object or pull the children out if we deemed necessary. So we followed the protocol there, but in this material, it was not followed. I also look and see, in a lot of the situations, we're eerily close to not passing the line against HB2, which was passed, where we're starting to get to that point, if not past it, where we're teaching children that they are inherently racist or sexist, or we could go on and read that. So there's 2 items we as parents desire, really require from this before we start the next school year. Number 1, HB2 is now passed. What is the school district's plan and guardrails around that to ensure that all the education material that is taught will comply with that? And number 2, if there is education or any type of material being discussed that goes against that, what are the repercussions for that, as well as how will parents be noticed? Think about that, sneaky and manipulative. We only found out because a couple parents started talking and we started asking our kids all this stuff. Think of your children in that too. Do you want kids in 5th grade, even younger probably, learning that? That was one book of many. We could all come up here and read page after page after page. We're very upset. We're also very aware. There's a lot of us. We're very focused on this too. Thank you.
Liz Serpian, right?
Okay, my name is Liz Serpian from Plastow. I came here to speak to you tonight because, as you just heard from my husband, our daughter was one of the children selected to be in this book review group. The school librarian read and discussed this book in detail with these children, and also on one occasion with the author of the book via a live Zoom meeting without our knowledge. I just wanted to say how highly inappropriate it was for the school librarian to be discussing any topics involving sexuality with elementary school children. I think most parents would agree with me that it is not part of her role to be determining how much content of that nature 10-year-olds are ready to be exposed to. This is the job and the right of the child's family. We are especially shocked that all of this was done over the course of 2 or 3 weeks without parental consent. We found out about this from another parent after the book was nearly complete, at which point we pulled our child out of the group. We did not hear about this from the school. I guarantee you there are multiple families that are still not aware that their children were part of this book discussion group. And I can only ask that moving forward, greater care be taken when selecting subject matter for young children, especially considering the new rules that have been passed for this type of material. And I don't believe that this is an unreasonable request. Thank you.
Bonnie Valley, Danville.
Okay. Bonnie Bauman, Danville. In a few moments, I will begin quoting parents and students' experiences they had from this past year regarding remote and hybrid learning. But first, per your most recent information on this upcoming school year, I see the district will receive $1.2 million in federal funds through the American Rescue Plan, designed to support the school in safety reopening and sustaining safe operations. That sounds like a good incentive and reason as to why this board is continuing to play it safe. This board has also made the statement that they will continue to follow state and federal guidelines, which is counterproductive since you do not serve the state, nor you federal representatives, but elected members sworn to serve the people of the school district. And guidelines are not regulations nor law. The only guidelines you should be following are those requested by the parents within this district. Currently, you're following a metric system designed by the NHDHHS, showing that if cases were to reach over 100, mask and social distancing would be implemented again. And given what we know, this illness is most severe of those over the age of 75 with comorbidities. Just a few of the retirement homes and nursing homes in our neighborhood I can think of is Fox Den, Parkland, Rockingham County Nursing Facility, American Nursing Home. There are 37 different towns in our county with anywhere from 1 to 4 different facilities. How can this board continue to operate under the guidance of the state with the knowledge of such a high number of elderly residents? Currently, under your ruling, if there was suddenly a cluster in even 3 of these nursing homes within our district, thousands of students and faculty would suddenly be once again masked up and 6 feet distancing would be implemented. This is insanity. So here are just a few of the parent and student statements regarding last year, and I'll keep it quick. I ended up taking my kids out of Timberlane. The system did not work for our family or children. Timberlane kids were in front of cameras, sleeping or watching TV. I feel like this year's online learning was absolutely horrendous. It's different for everybody, but I feel that I learned better in a classroom. Online, nobody sees what you're doing on the screen, so you could be sleeping, playing games. No one's telling you what to do and how to have work. Communication with certain teachers was very bad, and the whole Google Classroom setup with classes weren't easy. That being said, me and others I know grades have dropped tremendously. It made it harder to keep going, knowing you're not getting any better. I wake up every day tired and unmotivated. All this mixed with personal issues on teens like me made it terrible. My kid in special ed suffered and struggled completely. I pulled one to homeschool. I have a grandson who went from a straight A student to barely passing. So there you have it, school board. If your new plan has anything resembling this year, tear it up and throw it away, or you will have an army of parents in here and a drop of over 50% of your students for the upcoming year, which I'm sure is not good for your piggy bank. So please, hear us, use the scientific data at hand, and make the best decisions based on the guidance of the parents you serve.
Lisa Bargama.
Lisa Barr, Danville. As a former educator, I am appalled at some of the curriculum that I've been made aware of that's going on in this district. Children, especially young children, are very sensitive. Sexuality and critical race theory have no place in this district. I hope that you will be very careful from this day forward, thinking and looking at the curriculum and understanding what it does to young children. Critical race theory does nothing but teach children to dislike each other, to hate each other. Never should a child ever feel, because the color of their skin is one way or another, should impact anything. It is the character. It's what's inside of someone. I'm very concerned with what I've been finding out is going on in this district. So I'm begging you, pleading with you to look at what is going on with teachers and the curriculum and what they're doing in their classrooms. Nothing should be held from these parents. Nothing. These parents are the primary teacher, not the teachers. It's the parents that should decide everything, and they should know everything that's going on. So I'm asking you to please be more careful.
Peter Tarosian, Atkinson.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Timberlane School Board. My name is Peter Tarosian. I'm a state representative for the town of Atkinson and Plastow. I've heard from many constituents asking me to come and speak this evening in regard to the mask policy here at the school. I want to start by saying that in life there's inherent risk. That risk increases once you leave your home. But you need to put that risk into context. I'm going to read you some data here on a chart that the CDC put out for children and adolescents for deaths in the calendar year of 2020. This is the top 11 leading causes of death for that group. I'm going to start with the lowest number in the cause. So number one on the list of the lowest is the coronavirus at 133 deaths nationwide. The next is chronic respiratory disease at almost double the number at 274. Third on the list is death from fire or burns at 340. And if you can believe it, number 4 on the list is heart disease. 599 children and adolescents died from heart disease, almost 3 times the number that died from corona. Next is congenital abnormalities at 979. Number 6 on the list is drug overdose and poisoning at 982, drowning at 995, suffocation at 1430, malignant tumors 1853, firearm-related injury at 3,143 deaths, and on the top of the list of the most deaths is motor vehicle crashes at 4,074. Now, I haven't seen that Timberlane has a policy in regard to students driving their cars to school, but I certainly, if you're really concerned about where the big numbers are, I'd take a look at that. I'm pleased also to see tonight that I don't see a police presence here. And the reason I say this, as a state rep, I'm in numerous committee meetings up at the state house in the legislative office building. We don't have police presence. Both the towns I represent don't have police presence at Board of Selectmen meetings. So many constituents have voiced to me the concern and frustration that they feel that's intimidation. And so I just want to point out that I'm pleased to see that you don't have that presence this evening. I understood that you did vote on dropping the mask policy, but it was tied to the CDC and the state Health and Human Service guidelines. But then I also understand that you took a look and put some a group of deans together to come up with a metric that I'd love to know what the science is in that. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but I guess it looked like you were trying to do something outside of that arena. I'm also going to point out that many schools in the state of New Hampshire and outside the state have dropped the mask policy, including some in New Jersey, where my grandchildren go to school, and the population there is substantially greater than that of this district, and the level of the coronavirus down was substantially higher than we had here. So I know my time is limited, so I'm just going to say in closing, I ask you to listen to all your constituents, not just the employees of the district and the administration of the district, but all your constituents, which are my constituents as well, and listen to what they have to say, and that includes obviously the students of the district, but also the taxpayers and the parents of the district. So I hope you take this to heart, and I hope that you drop the mask policy. There's plenty of data out there that suggests masks can do more damage than they can good. Yes. One of the other things I didn't mention, but I will now, is that if you look at real data now, we have some good numbers. Children don't, not only do they not get this at a very high level, they don't spread it either. If you look at the data there, it's a very low level thing. So I hope you follow the other schools that have taken the lead in the state and drop the mask policy. And I hope you do take to heart what your constituents say and listen to them, whether they're students here or whether they work for the school. Thank you for your time.
David Kiley Atkinson.
Thank you, everyone. Dave Kiley Atkinson. Congratulations on the new school year. We really hope to help you guys make it a great one. Unless something's changed very recently, the current policy to reflect the June 3rd motion to make masks completely optional is based on less than 50 active cases. This is supported by a color chart prepared for that June 24th meeting that we just had in the agenda packet, prepared by Mr. Peterson, Ms. Allaire, and Ms. Canola. I hope I'm sorry for mispronouncing. Myself and many community parents do not understand how this reflects the June 3rd motion, nor what medical or scientific standards it was based on, as it's 3 times lower, 3 times than that of even the DHHS standard for minimal risk for any New Hampshire measured community, which is based on infection rates, based on population, not absolute numbers like 50. My inquiry to this concern was during the last meeting, directly with Mr. Peterson, and immediately after the meeting through email with the board. I was told that I was sort of corrected, I guess, and drawn towards something that happened last fall. That there was a chart that was being referred to in the motion. So I did my 91A request. I got the chart, and it's 100% based on a rate, not a whole number. It's from the September 17th agenda packet, and I was pointed to the same one that I found. So what is green? Green means minimal risk. I confirmed this directly with the DHHS. I provided the entire board with the phone number and the contact person who gave me the information. I also confirmed that the case rate referred to determining what is in the green is the 14-day case rate, okay? I provided this DHS contact information to you, as I already said, sorry. I also confirmed that an active case is just a component of the 14-day cases. It's just a snapshot at any particular time. So it's got nothing to do with it. It's always a smaller number. So when you make it 50, instead of 50 out of 100,000, 50 per 100,000 population, you're drastically reducing the threshold. What's the consequence? Today we have 50 active cases. I don't know if you guys looked it up. This would mean the kids would be required to wear masks anywhere they couldn't maintain 3 feet of distance. I can't even imagine what this would be like in the summer. Busing, meals, sports, gym, reading groups, hallways, bathrooms. We're going to have to throw our masks on in certain situations when we walk by each other. However, Rockingham County is still well within the minimal risk standards on a 14-day rate. They're at 26.1. out of 50. It's 24% lower than the next threshold, which is moderate risk. And the PCR positivity rate is only 1.5 out of a 5% risk rate, well below, 70% lower than the next rate. So please, I'll just finish up in closing. At a minimum, eliminate this mask mandate completely. They don't work. They cause more harm than good. Reject the policy interpretation completely. Administrators and board members are not qualified nor entitled to be making personal health decisions for our healthy students. And finally, stop pointing to higher authority to defer on tough decisions. Rely on your community members, especially parents, to determine what's best for our Tiverton students. The broader interests of the country, the state, and county are very different than that of our district, and the risk factors that specifically apply to kids. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Emily Hannay, sorry.
lot of great people that want to talk. Emily Hene Plastow. What I would like to get across tonight is the importance of letting parents and students choose whether they would like to wear a mask or not, regardless of what the numbers say on either your made-up chart or otherwise. Optional masks, period. Not if they can be greater than 3 feet apart, etc., etc. I wanted to provide you with some examples that show that masks might not be as effective as you think they are, and in my belief, doing more harm than good in children. Last summer, McMaster University in Canada did a review of 33 research publications on if children 10 and under are major spreaders of COVID. They concluded that the bottom line thus far is that children under 10 years of age are unlikely to drive outbreaks of COVID-19, and adults were much more likely to be the transmitter of the infection than children. Again, Dr. Fauci appears on 60 Minutes last March and says, quote, when you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little better and might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. He also says that it has unintended consequences like people touching their mask and their face. Good point, Dr. Fauci, right? Especially when the CDC says that if you touch your mask or after you take it on or off, you should wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds and use sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. Imagine if every time a child touches their mask, they have to wash their hands. Every time they're within 3 feet, they have to put their mask on, or they simply adjust it on their face, as kids obviously do. They would be washing and sanitizing constantly. These are recent examples. Never mind the fact that 4 researchers back in 2009 examined whether masks work to filter small particles, 1 micron or less. COVID, for comparison, is 0.125 microns. Their conclusion was a warning. The wide variation in penetration levels for room air particles, which included particles in the same size of viruses, confirms that surgical masks should not be used for respiratory protection. If I know this, the CDC knows this, Dr. Fauci knows it, and now you know it too. Probably most importantly, we have another assessment that came out in June from the Journal of the American Medical Association for Pediatrics. They looked at studies involving nose and mouth covering increasing carbon dioxide inhalation. The study showed that 68% of the 25,930 children had problems when wearing nose and mouth coverings. The publication concludes, quote, we suggest that decision makers, that would be you guys, weigh the hard evidence produced by these experimental measurements accordingly, which suggests that children should not be forced to wear masks. Then we have a press conference June 17th with Governor Sununu where Dr. Chan gave a public health update. He said, given the risk is decreasing, we are now recommending that asymptomatic persons, that's people who do not have symptoms or are not showing symptoms of COVID, can choose to go without face masks. So at minimum, at the very least, when hearing what I have said and doing your own research, you must conclude that the science on this is not settled. That's at the very least. If you think it is, you are not doing your due diligence and looking at all the facts. I don't know, but I have to assume that you are letting your personal beliefs blind you from the reality. You are not here for yourself. You represent a whole district of parents, and I am one parent here in front of you, but I promise that there are many more like me that believe as I do. They are unfortunately intimidated and feel that they or their children will be ostracized if they step forward. So if you're listening to me, if you listen to Dr. Chan, if you do your own research, put your own ideologies aside, you have no choice but to make masks optional come the fall. Thank you.
Laura Roy Plastow.
Hi, I'm Laura Roy from Plastow. I'm here to request that you consider the following information as you make your back-to-school policies regarding face mask use in our schools. Everyone needs to recognize and respect the fact that we are all equal and we all have freedoms and rights to our bodies and our property, and no one can make decisions for us regarding those, especially the school board. So setting any new irrelevant policies, especially at a time when there is no crisis, needs to end now. Some parents feel comfortable covering their child's face, and some do not feel comfortable at all doing so, and there needs to be a choice no matter what at this point, with acceptance and respect for each individual's choice. The June 17 school reopening plan states, quote, Timberlane Regional School District continues to respect the rights of individuals to choose to wear a mask at all times to protect themselves and or their loved ones, unquote. It does not state that the district respects the rights of individuals who choose not to wear a mask. Why do you favor one group over another? Why the discrimination? And if it is to protect themselves, meaning it's not for the greater good of society anymore, why is there no choice? Everyone that can and wants to be vaccinated are. The vaccine is also effective against the Delta variant, according to our state epidemiologist. Also, there are many people who have natural immunity from having had the virus, and I and many others can personally attest that antibodies are still present well after the 3-month time limit that people have been falsely given. Our state leaders do not recommend the following CDC guidelines, as they say, quote, New Hampshire Department of Public Health continues to intentionally deviate from CDC's guidance. CDC's guidance on use of mitigation measures is largely based on an individual's vaccination status. So New Hampshire continues to base our guidance on population level risk based on level of community transmission. And our community transmission is minimal. Our state, we have a minimum, like I said, a minimal level of community transmission, and we also should not be scrutinizing the metrics for our whole county, where if, say, there are 50 cases in Portsmouth, then our district shouldn't have to force everyone to put on a mask. How is that helpful, especially when our kids need consistency? We can't keep going back and forth constantly. And I'm going to read a few quotes from the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services from their June 16th meeting. Are K through 12 schools and child care settings high risk with classrooms of students who are not fully vaccinated? And they answered, no, we do not consider these high-risk settings. Children are less likely to transmit COVID, and we also haven't seen high levels of spread in school, including last summer when masks weren't universally used. We suggest you can safely choose to remove face mask requirements indoors, regardless of a person's vaccination status. All right, and my time's up, but I just wanted to ask that you hear what our state guidelines are from our governor, our state epidemiologist, and our commissioner of education, since they know our state best, not the CDC. And I can't believe all of this needs to be said over and over, but it does for whatever reason it is that you still find it necessary not to give parents the choice of masks on our own kids. And I've only heard parents speaking up for choice. I've not heard anyone come here to fight against parental choice. So I'm requesting that you not force controversial policies that favor one group over another. And if it doesn't end now, when will it end? We can't and won't hide behind the mask anymore. You need to find a way to make masks optional no matter what the metrics say.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, the remainder of the delegates, we will move to the end of the session for the board vote. Our student representative could not be here today. She did ask me to relay the following, that the extended school year students have developed great relationships with the staff and related service providers and are working with students throughout the day, in between activities and other services being provided. Many of the students are enjoying a break from their academic work to work on speech, OT, or PT activities, and students are enjoying a wide variety of learning activities using money, number, and cooking skills. The high school has added charging stations to the campus, and administration is currently working with the student council to plan some events for the upcoming school year. And that's all she wanted to share for this evening, so thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to, point of order, I'd like to actually make a motion. And my motion is to have the superintendent generate a complete report, a complete and detailed report on the book review program where 22 fifth graders were selected for a book review that was discussed by our first two delegates this evening. I'd like to understand what transpired and having it from the administration's viewpoint. Yeah.
There's a motion and a second?
Correct.
So what do you mean by a full report?
Well, I would say the report would be is who created this program, why was this book selected, and a complete accounting of that. I mean, it was, I'm finding out for this.
Is this program called the book review program?
I have no idea what it is.
Well, you're making a motion, I'm just trying to clarify it.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious what these two people had said in this delegate. If we don't know what they're talking about, then I think we have more issues than just that to deal with. So, I would say,
So your motion is for the superintendent to write a report on the book review program.
Stop trying to manipulate what he's saying, please.
Excuse me.
I can think for myself, please. I want a complete accounting of this program. Who was involved? Why were these students selected? What was the criteria for selecting them? And the topic. I mean, these are controversial topics. And then also to find out that the parents were not notified is appalling. And I'm asking the administration to, okay, let's hear their side of it and let's review it. That's what my motion is. And I think it's very clear. I think it's, people understand what we're talking about here. So we don't need to be coy.
I don't think she's being coy, I'm just trying to understand what you're asking.
Yeah, can you read back the motion?
My motion is to have the superintendent generate a complete and detailed report, an executive summary of what transpired on this book review program. That's what it's allegedly been said. I'm taking it at face value. Where allegedly 22 students were selected for this review of these books by the librarian. Let's start with just getting something done, because we're just finding out this evening as a board. And what I think would be good for the board to come up to speed. I can say, I don't know anything about this program.
What I'm asking is, I guess my question is, it sounds like it's 22 kids in one school.
I don't know that.
Am I correct?
Is it 22 in
I'm
one?
asking,
I'm sorry, can we,
what I'm saying is,
talk,
then that should be coming from our curriculum person in elementary, correct?
well, typically, what you're asking then is to violate board policy in terms of how we approach curriculum. The board does not change curriculum.
I'm not asking to change anything. I'm
We
looking to
do
find
not
out what
review
transpired.
curriculum
What
until it
transpired?
comes from the curriculum committee.
That's fine. We can do it. I'm not asking to change anything with that. I'm wanting to find out what happened. And please stop. Please, I understand. You're aggravated and so forth, but I want to carry on this discussion. I want to find out now what happened. What's this all about? You know, and find out the details of it. And then we can take whatever action this board decides to determine out of that. If it's an adjustment to the curriculum, it will still be done. But I want to find out what's happened first.
For removal. But I think Jim's question is, shouldn't the curriculum committee be reviewing this and not the superintendent?
If apparently, if this has already been administered in our school, it apparently had to be reviewed by them, so then it's already transpired. So if it has transpired, I want to find out more about this. And that's what I'm asking for, is an accounting of this. This is the first, I didn't know about any of this stuff until this meeting, until these two first delegates had mentioned that. So I just want to find out more about it.
Dr. Cochran, let me have Dr. Cochran go and then Steve.
Sure.
That if an investigation is done, it would typically and rightfully be done by the superintendent or SAU office. That's their responsibility, and you know, part of this is personnel, part of this curriculum, part of this other things. And given the complexity of the situation, the appropriate way to go, I believe strongly, is that administration, led by the superintendent and assistant superintendent, will look into it.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. It's just, let's start this out, and then
I'm
wherever
essentially agreeing with you.
the report, where whatever executive summary generates, and then we will debate that. That's all I'm looking for.
So just a clarification on why I seconded it. I agree with what you're saying, Sean. I think what I'm looking for is an understanding of how this happened and what process there was to have this happen, and then have that come back to the board so we can understand it and then make further actions based on that information. Right, so I agree with you 100%. I think this happened. I think we have to understand as a board why this happened. And I agree with you, Dr. Cochran. I think this is a superintendent and administration job to find those answers for us.
what's the motion?
I guess I would say the motion is, and I'm happy to make whatever the, I think the motion is,
No.
I will amend.
We have a motion on the floor that
Okay.
Sean has made. I don't want another motion until we clarify that motion.
I've already repeated it twice, so you asked
Then, Kat, can you read back the motion, please?
To have the superintendent develop a complete, detailed report of the book review program.
That's the motion we're voting on.
No, there was more to it than that. Where 22 fifth graders were selected for a book review that was discussed by our first two delegates this evening.
That's gotta be.
Where 22 fifth graders were selected.
And participated in the review of this book.
I would agree with that.
And I would add, yeah, that's good.
So the motion is to have the superintendent develop an in-detailed report of the book review program where 22 fifth graders were selected and participated in the review of the book.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I do want to say, and Dr. Cochran, maybe you can, or Mr. Cullen, answer this for me. If this involves personnel, this would not necessarily be a board. It could not come to the board.
It's curriculum. Excuse me, you really need to be quiet out in the audience, please.
Speak into the microphone so we can hear it.
Personnel issues do not come to the board.
Superintendent works for you guys.
Call the question, please.
We can't clear the room, Sheila, but if,
Really? And you wonder why the police came last time, right?
okay,
Can you be quiet, please?
Sheila, it's fine. Kat, please read back the
Call the
motion.
question.
To have the superintendent develop a complete and detailed report of the book review program where 22 fifth graders were selected and participated in a review of the book.
Okay. that's the
That
motion.
was discussed by our first two delegates this evening. I don't want a review of Catcher in the Rye, for example, even though I'm just picking that as another book. We know exactly what was discussed by these two delegates today. That book review process, those children that were asked these questions without their parents' consent, that's the issue that I want to have investigated, discussed, presented in a report so that we as a board are up to speed. That's my intent of that.
Thank you. Could we read back the motion again?
To have the superintendent develop a complete and detailed report of the book review program where 22 fifth graders were selected and participated in a review of the book that was discussed by the first two delegates this evening.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to call the question, and again, I'm reiterating, the board does not get involved in personnel matters, period. All in favor?
And may I just make a discussion that I want to hear all sides of the story. As a mom, I know there's usually only one side of the story.
Well, it's a complete report, so. 7-0? All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the school reopening update. I have spoken to the superintendent about this. We're hoping, the administration is hoping to open in pre-pandemic mode with masks optional for those that desire to wear them. However, they're going to continue to monitor the COVID statistics and make a final decision on the reopening plan sometime in August. The superintendent and I also discussed the possibility, and for discussion among the board, the viability of a district-wide multi-grade, fully remote elementary instructional model with no more than 2 grade levels per class. And it would be a commitment for the entire school year. And if that model is used, we might anticipate some additional staffing. As you know, vaccines are not available for students under 12 years old. There are other districts that are allowing for this option for elementary students where there are no vaccines possible. So I'm going to open that for discussion. Barbara, you had a question?
Okay, well, I would like to address the metrics, but we can do that after. How does this differ from VLAX? We already have VLAX, which does accept elementary school students.
It would be similar to what we did last year. VLAX services the entire state. When we think back to a year ago, VLAX was probably 90-some% full before they got a rush. They basically did not take very, very many students besides the people who were already enrolled. So they don't have the capacity. They were very upfront about that. And I think that if we want to make this as a viable option for parents, if they choose it, to rely on VLAX and a lottery system where some kids may get in and others may not, it probably is not the fairest way to go. So if we want to do this, then I think it's reasonable that we do it in district.
Sheila, then Kelly?
I say flat out, no, I'm not
You're
interested in this at all. Not interested. These kids need to be in the classroom.
Yes, okay.
They need to be in the classroom. They've missed a year of being in the classroom. These kids need to be in social. They need to be in the classroom. If parents want optional, if they're worried about these kids because they don't have vaccines, they can definitely send them with masks. But I am totally against any remote next year, unless we are forced into it.
Okay. Kelly?
Is this, would it be a separate cohort of all remote students, or would it be a camera in a classroom where there'd be some remote students and some in
No, it would be a separate cohort.
Okay.
Brian?
I thought, I was under the impression here from a couple meetings ago that Timberlane wasn't even going to be offering any type of remote learning in the fall. So this is obviously the first I'm hearing about this. Overall, I agree with Sheila. I'm of the expectation that these kids are going to be in school in the fall. If they're people uncomfortable, of course they can wear a mask. And if some major crisis worse than what we saw a year ago, I guess the board will address it then, but everything we're seeing right now, I have no idea what we're even talking about remote learning in July 15th tonight.
Steve? Did you?
I did.
Barbara?
Just to make sure I heard right, you said this is, they have to commit for the entire year? It's not semester by semester? Okay.
If we move forward with the model, that would be the model. That the commitment would be for a year. You could go partway through and then say, "Yeah, I want to go the other way," because we need to plan for it. So in last year we knew the situation may change. I think now the only question is what are the levels at? How might we respond if we needed to? We are hoping for and planning for a reopening in the fall that would allow all students in from day one. We were able to successfully open up at least in a hybrid last year for the very first day of school with most of our levels. Given the lead time and other factors, provided that things go relatively well in terms of local numbers, it's our great hope and expectation that we're going to do everything we can to make that happen for the fall.
Sean?
I also echo the same sentiment that Sheila and both Brian echoed. Is we offered the remote due to the pandemic. The pandemic is over, and we should be getting back putting students in front of a classroom and a teacher. So I will not be supporting any of
Okay, any other discussion on that topic? Kelly?
Sorry, it's an opt-in thing, so we're giving parents the choice to send their students to remote.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, moving on. Facilities update?
Sorry, before we move on from this, I actually have a motion that I would like to have the board take a look at the metrics for determining masks more further with a little bit more of the data to understand prior to implementing that. So I'm probably not making much sense. I want to take a look at the thresholds that we currently have in place that we voted on. I want to understand those a little bit better before we implement those for the school year. I would agree that a whole number of 50 is not, based on the population, is not where we should be going. We should be going on percentages. And so I'd like to have a more thorough look at that process before we implement it for the school year.
I'm sorry, before you make that motion, I think that if you're going to do that, if that's what you want to do, is relook at the metrics, that is something that you need not only board members to do, but you need the same sort of group that was put together before this that involved administration, public health officers, medical doctors, and so on. I don't think that board members have the expertise to read this data and make that decision.
Okay.
I disagree with that.
Well, that's fine. Then I would make the motion to have that group come back together to relook at the thresholds based on the information that we currently have. If that means getting the administration, doctors, I think so that's my motion.
So your motion is to form an ad hoc committee, including board members and the administration, to relook at the metrics for the school reopening plan, which would then need to be presented no later than August 19th?
Yes.
I'd like to make a recommendation.
Sure.
Are you recommending a change to that motion?
This motion.
Yeah, please.
My alternative is let's make it real simple. Let's just remove the mask mandate right now. And then if this school district wants to put in a program for this, they can come back to the school board with a proposal. They can form a committee, come up with a proposal, and come to the board. I will actually make a motion.
I'm sorry, hang on. There's a motion on the floor, and I'm looking for a second on that motion.
What if it fails, Steve, and then I'll make my motion.
Barbara?
I'm not seconding that.
So there's no second on the motion, so the motion fails.
I would make a motion that we remove the mask mandate. Period.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Can I just mention that the current policy says masks or distance, not masks and distance. So at all times, that is masks are optional in my current reading of this policy.
Sean, can I just get some clarification on your motion? So removing the mask mandate, but could there be an option there to just state if some threshold that would regroup
The
team?
the threshold would be that we have another pandemic and the state, the feds, and this board are going to convene rather quickly to address it.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
We are in discussion.
So, I appreciate all of the public that spoke tonight, but none of the data they shared was new as of the time we discussed this last month, or 2 months, whatever that was. So I'm just wondering why folks want to revisit this when you had that data available to you at that time.
Are you asking?
Yeah, just a discussion.
I'll just speak for myself, as far as I'm concerned. I thought as of June 30th, this was a whole different world. June 30th God, I don't even want to hear about masks for under 18 years old. Anyone hear about it?
So I'm happy to. So I will say that I work in healthcare, been a big advocate up to this point. I still have to wear a mask when I go to work. Whether I agree with it or not, that's what I have to do. I think based on my conversations with many medical professionals who have dealt with this over the last year and a half, many recent conversations, I think, my view has changed. And I think that our kids should, first of all, I think it should be a choice of the parents. And I think if parents are comfortable sending their children without masks, that's their choice. I think if parents are not comfortable, they have that as an option. And I think far too long, we have not allowed parents to make those choices. And for me, I think parents, that has to be a parental choice at this point.
That was my question.
Yep.
Great.
Kelly, what did you say?
Oh, I just wanted to clarify, because we talked about this in June, we voted on this last month, and all of the data that's been presented tonight was available to...
The gym is new.
Sorry?
The gym is new.
Okay, most of the data is not new, so I wasn't sure if board members hadn't heard it or not.
Any further discussion on that motion? Kat, could you read back the motion, please?
The mask mandate.
So I guess there is no mask mandate right now, so what are we removing?
There is no,
Can I do this?
take a stab at it.
You want to go for motion for a second?
I'll think about it. I'll let you present something.
Year 21-22, that the Timberlane Regional School District go mask optional.
There you go.
All right,
For the love of God, can you let us, I really
there is no
want to-
threshold.
I'm sorry?
I agree with everything you said, and that's the end of the sentence. We're done.
Yep.
That's the motion.
One and the same.
I would second Sheila.
One and the same.
It's one and the same, however, there is no mask mandate. So therefore,
Well, there
there
is.
can't remove a mask mandate.
There is technically a mask mandate for that.
There's a distance,
Yes.
mask or distance.
The bottom line is, there was a motion made, it was passed with all the color, and now what we're talking about is everything gone. Unless something else happens in the country and the world, we have to deal with it.
Okay, Dr. Farrow, my motion is in the school year.
We have a motion and a second that needs to be withdrawn first.
I'll withdraw my.
That's it.
Fine, I'll withdraw myself.
Sheila's now
Can
making
I
a
try this
motion.
again? I'd like to make a motion that in the year 2021/2022, that the Timberlane Regional School District will be mask optional until further notice,
I second.
Period.
period.
Okay, I'll second that.
Yeah.
It's already seconded, Steve.
Barbara?
So what does this do about the distancing guidelines? So if we go into the yellow or the red, are we going to still distance 3 feet or 6 feet?
We're gonna need to revisit that when it happens. But see, here's the thing, Barbara. This is where I am right now. We got no help from the state. We got no help from the CDC. It was all landed on us. We did the best that we could under the circumstances. And we're still going through it. It's been a long year and a half. So, my feelings are, right now, we look good. Let's go into the school year. If something happens and there's a delta or there's a major outbreak or whatever, the state's gonna let us know loud and clear.
Well, again,
Possible.
please. And anyone that thinks the students didn't suffer is kidding themselves. So, let's.
But that's not what, but
Let's go.
I just
Kelly?
want to get back to a normal year.
So I think, Kim, you had shared in the reopening update that it seems like the administration supports mask optional, but they wanted to revisit it by August
Correct.
15th.
So we're saying we're not gonna take, I'm asking those that made the motion, you don't wanna take administrators' viewpoints into consideration and wait until August 15th, which is, I'm not asking you folks, you run for school board if you wanna be part of this discussion. Those that made the motion, you don't wanna wait a month.
You know what, board members, let's have silence when so that we can hear each other, please. So go ahead, Kelly.
I just wonder if we should wait the month so we can get the administration's viewpoints.
Go ahead, Sean, I agree with you, Kelly.
I think that the administration can present that information back to us, and we can change our mind back then if they present something that's worthwhile for this board to support. But as of today, right now, this is the motion, this is what we're gonna be voting on, of what to do with this policy relative to how we anticipate 2021 and 2022 school year to start in September, or August, at the end of August.
The superintendent and his staff are responsible for day-to-day operations of the district. The board is not.
But we set policy.
Steve?
Just to add to that, I also think as part of this, the board still gets the updates as often as we do. I still think that we review, information on a weekly basis, or how often the cadence is. But I would agree with the motion as presented.
I'm going to call the question. Kelly, read back. Barbara, go ahead.
Is Mr. Pedersen here, or
No, he's not here this evening.
be able to speak about the administration's point of view on this?
Is he available? No, he's not. Is Mr. Peterson available, or?
Oh, no, I just want to hear from the administration the opinion on this.
When, in the discussions internally, when we came up with the summer guidance, we felt that we would have to come back and look at the situation in August. So whatever motion is tonight, it will have to be, to some extent, as we monitor and go forward, there will be an opportunity to make a change. We would be fortunate if at some point in time we didn't have to. Doesn't mean we won't be fortunate. But I think that if the board passes a motion, either to change the metrics or to go mass optional, then we should be able to implement that. From my perspective, there are pros and cons either way. Obviously, it's very divisive in some way. And whatever is decided, we will execute to the best of our ability. Our teachers, our custodians, our folks did a great job this year to keep people safe. Our numbers were relatively good. We had very, very little spread in the building. If the number stays, similar to what they are now, we do believe that we have a really good shot at opening in a normal load, and just continue to monitor. I know this is a difficult issue, and I know some families and some students had a much more difficult time with masks than the year in general. I think finding something that allows some student choice is likely a good thing, until such time as the numbers warrant something else. My personal opinion.
We're going to call the question. All in favor? 5. Opposed? 2.
Motion passes.
May I just say,
I did make a mistake when I said 50 instead of 50 per 100,000. With this motion, we don't need to change that.
Okay, moving on to the facilities update. Are there any questions on the facilities summer projects? We now have a new Director of Plant Operations, Carl Inglesby, and we also have another person in that department that will be starting shortly.
starting next Monday. Two significant changes for us on the facility side, and we're very much looking forward to it. Both are very experienced and bring a lot of knowledge and significant experience in similar situations. In Carl's place, he's had a lot of experience in other school districts, and so that's very applicable. Both interviewed extremely well, and we're really looking forward to getting them on board.
Thank you. So moving on, there's a budget transfer request here. This is from our CFO, Maria Watkins. We're just looking to transfer from account 1100-1112-25021 to 25081, and then also from account number 112-25021 to 112-510.1. For those new to the board, if there's a transfer from a budget line of greater than $25,000, it needs to be approved by the board. The reasons for these transfers are clearly noted. It's due to the fact that we have teacher needs in different schools within the district. So I'm looking for a motion from the board to approve the budget transfer. Sheila?
I'll make a motion to accept those budget transfers and the amounts and the accounts specified in the CFO/BA's memo dated July 15th, 2021.
July 14th.
Sorry.
Barbara seconds.
No, it's the 14th, I think Maria is.
Barbara seconds. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor? 7, okay. Next item, and I think we just spoke about this, this is on personnel status. This, there was a request, this is in regards to SAU personnel. So we now have a custodial facility supervisor, we have a director of plant operations. The executive secretary to the executive director of curriculum, learning and assessment is now vacant. As the board should be aware, this is now an SAU position in the new organization of 106. There's a finance office administrative assistant that's in the process of being hired, an HR coordinator, the SAU receptionist, and there's still an HR admin assistant open. Any questions on that? Moving on, we've got a second read on policies. So it says first read, but these are the second reads on these policies. Looking for a motion to approve policy CF, CFA, CFA/R, CFB, CH, CHCA, CLA, and CM for a second read. Sheila makes a motion. Brian seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Moving on to the 21-22 PAC schedule. Board members, in your packet, you have the proposed PAC schedule. Are there any questions, or is there a motion to accept the PAC schedule for new board members? Every year we accept the PAC schedule so that can be posted so people are aware of what events are and who is using the PAC at what time.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed 2021-22 music and drama PAC schedule of events.
Is there a second? Sean seconds. Any discussion?
Listed here?
Because they come here. If it's a home game, the band is in here.
In the pack?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then they kind of leave through the back and they walk around and march in. So their stuff is in here, basically.
Okay.
All in favor? 7-0. Moving on to the personnel report, we have several nominations here. We will do the professional nominations in public, the renomination and then the resignations, and we will hold the administrative nomination until we go into a non-public and then come back out. So we're looking for a motion to accept the following professional nominations. Michelle Azuli, Chief Executive Secretary to the Superintendent. This is an SAU position. Sarah Campbell, Elementary Technology Teacher at Pollard. Kathleen Farley, a District Float Nurse. Carrie Gamble, .5 Pre-K Teacher at Pollard. Allison Hutchins, Grade 7 ELA, Middle School. Daniel Larson, Clark, English teacher at the high school, Joseph Rune, pre-engineering teacher at the high school, Ashley Smith, full-time preschool, Sandown Central, Adam Sullivan, special ed teacher at the middle school. Looking to accept those professional nominations. Sheila makes a motion, Steve seconds, all in favor? 7-0. Renomination of Jennifer Escobar as a world language teacher in the middle school.
So moved. Second.
Sheila makes a motion, Steve seconds, all in favor? 7-0. And we have the following resignations: Amy Champion, grade 6 social studies at the middle school, Joanne Hammer, special ed, Pollard, Sarah LaCroix, pre-K, special ed, Sandown Central, and I think this is Michaela LaRoche, apologize, world language teacher, Timberland Regional Middle School.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to accept those resignations. I'd like to thank you for your service to the district and wish you well in your future endeavors. Can we have a vote, please? All in favor? 7-0. Okay, moving on. School board meeting location. We will continue to meet in the PAC. I'm not sure, this was discussed last time, I think. I don't think we need an action on this. Dr. Cochran, do you have a report?
Actually, we do not. Personnel report.
Okay.
Summer's a little quieter. We're down to 50 hours.
There you go.
Just a reminder, I know I ran into an issue. On one of the websites, I believe it said that there was a school board meeting next week. I just want to make sure that we know that that's not accurate,
Yeah.
and that we're meeting tonight instead, so.
The next meeting will be August 5th.
Thank you.
Any committee reports, Barbara?
Energy Committee, we met last night.
And we had the new plant director, Carl Inglesby, joining us, and that was a really great experience. Our LED light replacement is going really, really well. This is going to save us a lot of money. There's a 2-year payback. We're spending $215,000 over the next year, and we're going to make that money back in 2 years and then start saving that money. Steve Paradis has been doing a terrific job. He's a single man guy. He's changing all these light bulbs by himself over the summer and on into the year. We hope to get some students helping him later, but he's really keeping the cost down by doing it in-house, so I really thank him for his work there. The C-Power, I was really excited to see the C-Power in the facilities report, so that's something where we have a special arrangement with our electricity, and when there's heavy demand, like on June 28th and 29th, we reduce our electricity power and we get paid for that. Right, Maria? Yes, we like getting paid for that. We're looking at the solar project, but given how much is going on this year with the SAU and the new SAU and new people, we're going to slow roll that. We're just going to keep gathering information about solar over the year, and we're not going to do a warrant article in 2022. But we are going to be looking at energy savings things, especially for the for the gas companies, utility companies, who will give us incentives towards replacing things like the windows in the TRHS courtyard, which is something anybody who's been there knows is terrible. And that's all we have.
Okay, any other reports? Personnel? We are negotiating, we have entered into negotiations with the TTA. We're continuing negotiations with the administrator, CBA. We put on notice for the other 3 bargaining units, and we'll enter into negotiations with them. We are continuing to negotiate with Hampstead on the MOU regarding SAU 55. That has not been completed yet. Barbara.
We're not part of SAU 55 anymore. What's that MOU with SAU 55 about?
We can discuss that in non-public. It's pending.
All right.
Okay, so we need to go into a non-public under 91A, paragraph 2, section. Somebody have the RSA here? I thought I had it. I know. Dana, do you have the, I'll look it up, never mind. I just want the entire RSA, 91A.
And are you doing C?
Yes, I'm doing C.
Matters which, if it's discussed in public, would
Yeah.
likely affect adversely the reputation of any person.
So we're looking for a motion to enter in under C. So moved. Charles makes a motion, second. Steve seconds. Kat, can you take a roll call, please?
Ms. Bose?
Yes.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Mr. Finnegan?
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka?
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Okay, so board members will move into the small tech room. Tech crew up in the box there. We will come back into a public session because I do anticipate that we'll have action after this non-public. Thank you.
And down. Motion to and down. Straight.
I'd actually like to make a motion to seal the non-public minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? 6-1. Entering public session. I am seeking a motion to appoint Kurt Schweiss as interim director of music.
I would love to make that motion.
Second.
Shell makes that motion. Kelly seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Congratulations, Mr. Schweiss. And I'd also like to make seek a motion to appoint Sarah Gallagher as assistant principal of Atkinson Academy.
So moved.
Second.
Kelly seconds. Sheila first, Kelly seconds. All in favor? 7-0.
Welcome.
Welcome. Sarah is currently with the district, but will be moving up into that position. And then the last item here that we need to do is to accept the resignation of Jennifer Mitchison as assistant principal at Timberlane. She's moving on to another opportunity. Seeking a motion to accept the resignation.
I will accept the resignation with gratitude and best wishes for your new appointment.
Second.
Sheila makes a motion, Kelly seconds. All in favor? 7-0. Dr. Cochran, did we want to say anything about middles? No?
No, in terms of personnel or?
Yeah.
No, I'm thrilled to work with Kurt in the interview process. He was very interesting. He is a competitive chess player, and those skills are going to come in to his new job as he's thinking multiple moves ahead. He's actually put a lot of time and effort into this already, and he's worked with Eric to try and get us in good shape. The agenda of performances that you approved tonight, Eric and Kurt have been working on that. I know he's been doing other things a little bit on the sly maybe, but he wants to make sure that he hits the ground running and trying to put together the best program that we can. He's already talked to me about permission, and depending on where we are, a possible Florida trip for one of our groups next year. So normalcy is starting to come around, but just super thrilled with the energy, the expertise. He's just a superb problem solver. I'm just so impressed with him, as I was Mr. Clark is a very strong candidate as well. So thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. With that, I think we can adjourn. Oh, yes, we still have a delegate. Stephanie Dewey, Danville. There was only one left. I don't think she's here. I think we're all set then. Okay. We'll adjourn. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.